This video is to allow you to correct your homework for section 2.3.1. The first thing they want you to do is draw a generic rectangle to multiply 37 and 42. So what you're going to need to do is to set up your generic rectangle, and when you do that, you're going to have 30 plus 7 times 40 plus 2. And if you want to put the 30 plus 7 on the top, 40 plus 2 on the side, or vice versa, either way is fine. Then you're going to need to make sure that you have the sections filled in. So what is 30 times 40? 1200 or 1200. Both are the same. 40 times 7 is 280. 30 times 2 is 60. And 7 times 2 is 14. So then you're going to need to show that you added them all up to get a total. Okay, so your equation would be 1200 plus 280 plus 60 plus 14, and the fact that that equals 1554. Then they want you to multiply it using the standard algorithm for multiplication. So in other words, you're going to show the 37 times 42 this way, where you do 2 times 7 is 14, carry the 1, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and then you are going to need to put a 0 for a place value, and then 4 times 7 is 28, put down the 8, carry the 2, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14, and then you add. So 4, 15, carry the 1, 5, and again you get the 1554. So again, make sure you're showing your work. And then, what method of multiplication do you prefer and why? So there's not really a right or wrong answer. You might prefer the generic rectangle, you might prefer the standard algorithm. Simply put down what you prefer and why. Then here, we're looking at basically this sort of section of a generic rectangle. They want you to identify the factors and the product. Well, the factors are the two numbers that are being multiplied. So that would be 50 and 60. And the product is the answer to the multiplication problem, which is 3,000. Here you need to come up with two fractions that are equivalent to each of these. Now there's an infinite amount of possibilities, but make sure you're showing how you got them. So for example, if I multiply both top and bottom by 2, I would get 2/4. If I multiply top and bottom by 3, I would get 3/6. But again, there's an infinite amount. If I multiply 3 and 5 both by 2, I would get 6/10. If I multiply them by 3, I would get 9/15, and so on. So make sure you're showing what you multiplied top and bottom by, as well as your equivalent fractions. Here, Ruth's brother Ethan planted a garden for her as a surprise when she was away. He planted seeds for vegetables in 50% of her garden. So this is representing the section that's vegetables. He also planted flowers and herbs. The entire circle represents the area of the garden. If this lightly shaded portion represents flowers, they want you to estimate what portion would be herbs. So in other words, try to estimate this section as a percentage and then figure out what would be left for the dark part. So basically, they're saying that you may represent this or think of this as probably being maybe 35 to 40% of the circle, and therefore what would be left is 100% minus 50% minus 40% would be 10%, or if you thought this was about 35%, 100% minus 50% minus 35% would leave you with 15%. Another way they said you could think of this is it's like a fourth of that half, and 1/4 of 50% would be 12.5%. Here, make sure you're showing your work, showing that you lined up your decimal points, and then getting your answers. So again, just having these answers would not be adequate. Make sure you're showing your work.